Hello, and welcome to the War Room. My name is Blake Davis, and I'll be your host. We're going to be discussing some issues as they pertain to addiction and mental health today. Hopefully, we can answer some questions that you may have for yourself or maybe for somebody else. Today, our guest is Chris Flanary. He's the director and founder of Brothers in Recovery. Chris, how we doing?
I'm doing great, Blake. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Chris, how long have you been sober?
My sobriety date is January 1st of 2007.
Okay, so that puts it at 11
About 12 and a half
12 and a
years.
half. My math is horrible. I apologize. How long, what made you want to get involved in, after you got sober and you started to realize that there's some blessings that are happening in your life, what made you say, I'm going to take the next step and give back what was given to me?
Well, when I got into recovery, into sobriety in 2007, I met a guy named Bruce Kopp. I met a guy named Jim Riley, Joe Pello, and men like this I seen helping other people, and I decided that I wanted to kind of give back to the people that were going through the same thing I was.
Sure.
And so that's kind of how I got started. I started going to meetings at the Pello House.
Now, what is that? The Pello House.
The Pello House is, Jim Riley is 72 Miami Dolphins football player, undefeated team. And he started the Jim Riley Outreach, and the Pello House was under that. And it's a sober living house in Oklahoma City. Okay. And it's now the Pello Outreach. But I started going to that in 2007 and started getting involved and helping guys. And I was doing a lot of service work for the Jim Riley Outreach. And then in 2008, I started my own house. And from then on, it's grown into what you see today.
It's quite a journey. You've gone through these stages, and now you're ready to give back to all those that really need it. I know there's a lot of people out there, myself included, that probably go through this mental battle of, am I an addict? Am I an alcoholic? What would you tell that guy or girl when they're going through having these thoughts?
I wouldn't tell them that they are a drug addict or alcoholic. That's not for me to decide. That's for them to decide. They can kind of tell where is their life today. You know, are they sick and tired of being sick and tired? Are they getting up in the morning and fighting to get that drink or drug? Is that what they're living for? Then, you know, probably your life is unmanageable, like mine was. Yeah. And you have to do something different. Methamphetamine and alcohol had completely destroyed everything I loved in this world. And so,
how long were you using?
I started drinking at a pretty young age. Methamphetamine I started in my 20s, early 20s, and probably started on the weekends, you know, doing little parties, stuff like that. Sure. It's still fun. And then it got to the point where that was my life. You know, I used every day. For probably about 4 years, I'd used every single day. To the point where I was 125 pounds. I'm not that now, as you can see. And my life had become totally unmanageable. Yep. Everybody that I loved me, I'd pushed away. And so I found treatment in January 1st, 2007. And Bruce Kopp said something to me that just blew me away. And that was, I sought my soul I could not see. I sought my God eluded me. I sought my brothers and found all three. And that's kind of what Brothers in Recovery today is based off of, is the brotherhood and doing life together.
Wow. Well, now you did tell me off stage, you mentioned there's a path on our journey that we go through when we're in the depths of our addiction, moving all the way through until, you know, we start to feel good and about ourselves and about life. Tell me a little bit more about what you were describing to me.
Well, in our addiction, you know, we're in survival, what I call survival mode. Okay. And a lot of us look at drugs and alcohol as medicine, okay? I got to have this to survive. That's what I'm living for. So you're surviving by going and doing whatever you got to do to get the drink or drug, lying, manipulating, and we're the best at it. So Absolutely. We go from from the survival mode to my life is completely unmanageable into treatment, detox treatment, whatever it may be at the time, and you start building a foundation. So you get in there and you start getting some structure, you start getting some stability, and that stability is what I think the next chapter is in your journey there is the stability. But once you're in treatment and you're getting this, you go from there into sober living like we do here, some kind of 12-step program. You start getting the job back, the relationships back. You start feeling successful. You start having some success. And then you go from that into, for me, I can have the house or the car or whatever it is, the relationship. But the happiness really for me comes from having that relationship with God and giving back to my fellow man. The drug addicts that's still out there suffering, those are the people that I want to reach.
Sure.
I want to help whoever I can. And there is the significance. And I think that that's what a lot of us are missing is the significance. We have a purpose. And our purpose as drug addicts and alcoholics in recovery is to give back to the one that's still suffering.
Absolutely.
Because we're the only one that can. We've been there, done that.
Yeah.
So we can give back to that. And that's where the significance comes from. And I think that that's what we're longing for, is that significance in our life.
I love that you kind of added a piece or an ingredient to this recipe. Not that it's going to be fail-proof or anything like that. There's not one way, that someone gets sober and lives happily ever after. Many different paths that we go. You did mention religion, so to speak, when you mentioned God. Now, what did you mean by God? Because I know there's a lot of you guys out there that God for you hear it all the time. It must mean Jesus Christ, and that's not necessarily the case. Correct? I mean, there's different religions out there. Tell us about it.
Well, I grew up understanding God as a God that was going to smite me, burn me with a magnifying glass. And when I got into recovery, I found spirituality, which the God of my understanding is Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. But that's not the case with everybody. The deal is you have to find a God of your understanding in recovery.
Gotcha.
If you don't, you're playing God, and we've been doing that for a long time. It doesn't work. So for me, I had to find my conscious contact with God, which wasn't this God that was going to burn me with a magnifying glass. He was a forgiving, loving God that wanted the best for me, that had already forgiven me for what I couldn't forgive myself for. So once I found that sunlight of the Spirit and started doing the next right thing and helping my Father, getting out of that selfish mode of what's in it for me. It's all about me, me, me. Once you get to that point where you give it to God, you let God take over your life. It's a totally different deal than saying, the God that lives up there that is going to be watching and check mark, check mark. Today, it's the God that lives in me.
Sure.
And that's different. Like I said, that's different for everybody. I'm not here to convert you. I'm here to show you a way that worked for me.
Yeah.
And, a lot of these guys that I get, they have a hard time with God. And you have to have that open-mindedness. Well, the way I'm doing it's not working.
Right.
So something out there has to give, and I have to have that honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. That willingness to try a different way of life.
Sure.
And if you're having trouble believing in God, believe that I believe in God, and it's working for me. So there's always something to take out of spirituality. And a lot of people get all bound up with the religion thing. We're talking about spirituality and recovery.
Two different things.
Two different things. And, when I talk about sobriety and I talk about recovery, they're two different things.
Yep.
Living in recovery means changed behavior. So I can be sober, I can quit drinking and drugging, and I can still do the same garbage that I always did when I was out there drinking and drugging.
Sure.
So what we're talking about is a totally different way of life. Now I'm living in recovery. I'm living in spirituality. I'm having a spiritual life. The big book talks about spiritual malady. We have to get rid of that spiritual sickness in order to grow in every other direction of our life, emotionally, physically. Everything has to be through a spiritual plane, and that means that one-on-one contact, conscious contact every day with God, whoever that may be for you.
Sure. That's fascinating. I know for myself, I say the third step prayer every morning. It's just a nice way for myself to set the tone for the day. Make my bed. I've already accomplished something. That's a win already to start the day out. And then I just talk to God real briefly and ask Him, please give me the strength and the wisdom and to do your will. And that God is, just simply put, it's something greater than myself. Because me left to my own devices, we all know what happens. We're here watching a video trying to get answers, So that is very interesting. I would like to say there's a lot of people out there that probably have family members that are struggling. What would your recommendation be as far as maybe the first steps to getting them some help? And maybe you guys out there yourselves that I don't know where to start other than to go grab a bottle and numb myself away. How would they go about doing that, and how can they contact you directly, maybe?
We have a Facebook page. We have a website. It's brothersinrecovery.com for our website. You can look us up, Brothers in Recovery, on Facebook. My personal phone number is 405-301-3789. You can always call me, and we try to devise a plan. And I do a lot of 12-step calls, meaning I go to the point of crisis, and I do several of them. So we find out where you're at, and we try to get a plan for you, meaning whether that be I've got to go to detox, treatment. We work with many different treatment facilities, Rob's Ranch being one of them, which is a Christ-centered facility in Purcell. Awesome place. Helps a lot of people. We've put a lot of guys in there. Mm-hmm. But we also want to help with sober living, whatever that may be, where there's no competition here. So whatever is needed, we want to see the person that is the best fit for that person, that they're going to have the most success. And that's, there's so much variety. A lot of people don't realize the recovery community in Oklahoma City is just awesome.
It is.
So whatever it's needed, whether it be a meeting or whatever is needed,
right.
We will try to get them headed in the right direction.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you, Chris, so much for all your insight. I know you've helped me out. You've given me inspiration as well as information. I hope it's helped you guys out as well. Please tune in the next episode. Thank you. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the first episode of The War Room. The goal behind this is to give us an opportunity to answer some of the questions you guys may have as far as recovery is concerned. So if you, a family member, or even a friend is struggling with addiction, please don't hesitate. Reach out to somebody. Pick up that phone and call somebody, because the beauty of what we have going on right now is you don't have to do it alone anymore. See you next time.